since other than the cup quarter final.
He's not exactly a talisman for him, is he?
But anyway, they've been on a long losing run since that cup quarter final, and
9,040 people got to witness this.
There you go, in front of James Child as the referee.
There you are.
And we'll start with actually Tyler Cassman said Wakey deserved that, but could have lost had Percival brought his kicking boots. Saints will struggle to get their customary top 4 finish this year. Trinity have recruited well and can easily make the 8. Scott Griggs is a shrewd signing.
Alan Walker says much better contest than last night's walkovers. Summer rugby starts in winter, so they have to play in it. Same for both teams, and both teams got on with it. Really enjoyed it. Great to see Saints coach whinge about a clear-cut penalty. Sometimes you need to take the dog out the back and shoot it.
Aidan Stalker said that first half performance was utterly disgraceful from Saints. The contrast between Cass and the buzz in the jungle compared to this shit tells its own story. At least Walker and Tyre had good debuts while Knowles was decent, but I won't bother listing all the dreadful Saints players. Nice to see how much it meant to Wakey. While Sam Williams looks like a good pickup, I feel ill.
There you go. Saint David said a deserved win for Trinity. Simple game plan, well executed. Sharp passing and good kicking game. Saints were dire in the first half with no go forward. Took over 30 minutes to get some ball in the Trinity 20. We're better in the third quarter of the game with both Tyre and Walker, brackets where's he been, on the field, but lost our way at the back end again. We look like a poorly coached side lacking inspiration and leadership.
Yeah, Walker, well, Douglas has been chosen over Walker, and Douglas has been not anything like the player I'd seen in the NRL, or even in a Scotland jersey. And so his finger injury is out for like a month or so, isn't he? Blessing in disguise, I think.
Possibly so, yeah.
For St Helens.
That's it.
Deflated Frogmore said, I can't spake.
You bottlers get. I love it.
I left for work and we were 12-10 up. Being I didn't see us lose, I don't think the loss counts. I don't know if it's a case of taking the shit teams lightly or what's going on. Not ready to hit the panic button yet. Roll on next week. Come on, you Saints.
There we go. So, I flick my page over and tell you that Wakey White got in touch and said it was a cracking performance from Wakey, a win based on solid defence, excellent game management and a high completion rate in poor conditions. It looked at one point as though it wasn't going to go our way, but the lads dug deep and scored late on for a deserved win. Some top performances all over the park, but for me Scott Griggs again was excellent along with Hubie and Kermond. A first win in 12, glad we've got that monkey off our back.
Tim G Radio said Wakey fully deserved that and I'm glad Saints didn't get lucky. Definitely a penalty try, well done ref.
Brian Davies said wasn't looking forward to Wakey away at Saints on a wet Friday on Sky, but as it turned out the game was much better than expected and the Wakey win was a real bonus. Not sure there was any sensible doubt about the penalty try. It was great to see James Batchelor get some good game time and tackle non-stop.
Paul O'Brien said, poor game in awful conditions. Thought the penalty try decision at the end was the correct decision.
There you go, and he's an ex-referee.
There you go.
So you heard it here. Well, not first, but...
You've heard it all weekend.
You heard it here belatedly. Paul Ludo Lewis, he says, I may have been in the minority, but I enjoyed this one. Best team on the night won, and last Wakey try wasn't even dubious, it was a clear try. Must be hard to sack a coach who has a statue outside the ground, but Saints will have to act soon, or they'll have no fans in the totally half-empty stadium. Week in, week out, Paul Ludo Lewis brings the good stuff in terms of raising a chuckle with us. Keep it up, Paul. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
What did you make of this one, Marcus?
I only saw like the 15-minute highlight thing on Sky, to be honest, because I was otherwise engaged and didn't have time to catch a full replay.
Yeah.
But first thing I'd say is, like, did they get a plough out on that pitch? Because it was a right mess by the end.
It was by the end.
The turf looked like it was just coming up. And the players did well to keep the feet in, the foot in that middle part of the sort of each half.
Yeah.
But from what I saw, Mason Caton Brown's try on its own deserved to be a game winner. It was that spectacular a finish, and well done to him coming in and doing that.
Yep.
And Saints' tries, Percival's a great talent, and he's going to do things to a lot of sides. I don't think... It felt like, obviously, they must have been putting some pressure on Wakefield at that time, but from all the reviews I've seen, Wakefield controlled the game outside of that patch and deserved the win. And I shockingly think that I agree with everyone who thinks it was the right call.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I'm a neutral. More neutral than you're. Very neutral. You do tend to call these things down the line, but you could be accused at times by people wanting to make the point, not necessarily because you do, of having cherry and white specs on. Well, as someone who doesn't wear cherry and white specs, it was a try.
From what I saw of it, the young halfback, he didn't have a choice. No. I don't feel.
No, I don't blame him.
Because they were going to lose the game anyway. He started to lean into him and try and interrupt his run from quite a bit before they got to the ball, and then as Miller was going to get the ball, there was a clear shove.
Yeah.
And Cunningham said it wasn't 100% going to be a try, but the law says in the referee's opinion, it was 100% going to be a try.
Yeah.
And I think the referee's opinion is the opinion most of us held, that Miller was going to get that ball and going to have a really good opportunity of getting that ball in his hand and putting it down.
Yeah.
And Richardson interrupted that.
There you go. No, yeah.
Did you see the game?
I did. Yeah, it was. I really see. I was expecting people to be slating it because of the conditions and because of the way it was played, but it was a really enjoyable bit of fare. Really, it was just good old fashioned rugby league. It was surprising in some respects to see the manner in which Wakey got over the top of Saints' pack and made them work, and the positional work that they were able to achieve, and where they kept St Helens, which from time to time is where they're comfortable being with their backs against the wall. But it was noticeable from my point of view that Wakefield were winning the battle in the forwards for large swathes of the game, and that actually stood them in good stead in terms of limiting St Helens' attacking options. Saints didn't click in attack either. Particularly well, and Wakefield took their opportunity, so it was a deserved win. I felt sorry for Wakefield when Saints had got themselves into that 12-10 position and it kind of stayed there for a few minutes. You thought, well, Saints have probably just about squeaked through on this one, probably don't deserve the win, but that's the way these games go sometimes. And I was pleased to see justice be done in a lot of respects, because Wakefield would have felt harshly done to have lost that game, given the effort that they went to and the way that they managed this opposition and the conditions for 80 minutes. So no, it was a fair result, I would say. And
we went from McDermott out to Cunningham out. So
yeah, you think when they sack Kieran Cunningham, there's going to be some kind of Baghdad circa 2004 moment where a tank or a Land Rover pulls over his statue. drags it along not Preston New Road, what's it called? Drags it along the East Lancs Road for a few miles.
I think there's a lot of St Helens supporters who would rather remember the great player Kieran Cunningham and not have to worry about the ineffective coach.
Yeah.
Do you think the conditions in that game, if Saints had had Matty Smith in the side, it would have been, because I'm guessing the conditions were very similar to they were at Wigan.
Well, they were garbage.
And Matty Smith has controlled games like that a number of times over the years, or do you think Wakefield really were that much better than St Helens? That is surprising. Maybe Wakefield had to rely on a tough decision. Not a tough decision. Sorry,
I don't want to take anything. I don't want to take too much away from Wakefield, because on the balance of play, and you can only play what's in front of you, they deserve to win. It could be that Matty Smith in that team has an absolute stinker and kicks numerous balls out on the full and what have you, and just has an off night, and they still go on to win. Matty Smith undoubtedly would make a difference for St Helens, but I think more broadly there is an issue at that club about the way that their coaching has been brought on. Clearly the fans don't like the brand of rugby league that they're playing, although we've praised it in terms of when it works out tactically for them, it is a method.
Hold on. Praise, yeah. Seen the merits in why they're doing it more so than let's not suggest we like.
That's not a brand of rugby league. It's not Castleford, is it?
They make Wigan look like a flair team sometimes in the last few years.
Yeah.
St Helens. Now maybe that's partly been forced upon them by all the halfback injuries they've had over the last 3 years, and they've been just a goal line defence side, haven't they? Many of these times, and they didn't hold strong.
No, it certainly didn't. And I'm taking nothing away from Wakefield, and you can't play fantasy rugby league with it, because Mike Smith could still have.
No, I'm in terms
the point you're making though is
Leeds fans were talking about, or Leeds people have been talking about their injuries now with Saints, the significance of the players they've missed in terms of it. Smith's been out all year, and Lomax was missing, wasn't he, again for this one?
Yeah. But I think Megginson's deputising fairly ably at fullback,
Okay.
And let's be fair, it's not like St Helens aren't used to having to cope without Johnny Lomax for long periods of time. So this is something that's part of their DNA in the last 2 years. So yeah, that was
Can
my
I ask
thoughts.
you about
You asked me about it.
Liam
it was
Finn?
a weekend ago. Go on, at Wakefield.
Yeah,
Off the
being a
bench
slightly interchange
for-
hooker.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that he's playing in that position, and we saw the try scored against Huddersfield. But I didn't watch the game in full. So how influential is his play? Is he suiting that role?
Who starts at hooker for Wakefield? It was
Kyle Wood.
Yeah, I thought Kyle Wood had a very good game for Wakefield, and he almost got a lovely try early in the piece. He's spelling Kyle Wood. His distribution's good, as you'd expect, because he's nominally a halfback. 5 or 6 years ago, had he been deployed in that way, you would probably have seen him scooting from dummy half a bit more and being more that kind of Brad Dwyer impact hooker off the bench. But he doesn't have that shoe in him anymore. So I think he's just more kind of a spelling people, working day performance. It didn't stand out and make me think, well, this is a great new way to deploy Liam Finn.
Are they bringing in the pack then off the bench? Is it like a larger pack on the bench to complement Finn coming in? Because then obviously it sounds like
But it was three of the forwards on the bench
Yeah.
to complement them, and obviously Fafita comes in for his impact. St Helens actually stocked up the bench. St Helens went with 4 forwards on the bench, so it looked like Saints were going to go for plough down the middle and see what they can come up with, which is pretty much what you expect from Saints anyway. And Wakefield were going to be a bit more expansive and try to play around them. And actually, when they did that, that's when they found their success. And it was only because Saints limited their ability to go around them that Wakefield probably were as close as they were, I would say.
Right. Well, on the stats,
the two styles of play contrasted, and it was Wakefield's that won out.
on the stats, Saints actually scored a try more and had narrow wins in carries and total metre numbers, plus the same amount of breaks and I don't know what I've written there, about a dozen more successful offloads.
It was quite a dozen. Maybe it was just quite. Maybe it was 12 very good offloads. Maybe it was quite a dozen.
Saints also actually conceded fewer penalties, 6 to 8, but Wakefield took advantage of point scoring opportunities on the ones that were given. Adding to that, 5 more errors from Saints, 10 to 5 on that count, and a 1.4% worse team tackle success. Saints didn't kick a goal, Wakefield didn't miss a goal. Wakefield edged the positive play differential, showing the numbers agree they probably just deserved to edge the game.
Yeah, that's the other thing about Wakefield's approach. It was very Wayne Bennett. It was, if you got points on offer, take them. So it was take two. So intelligent way to set the team up from Chris Chester. Individually, who stood out for us then?
Tinirau Arona with 42 tackles worked hard. Tom Johnson made 124 metres and Bill Tupper, his centre, made 133 metres. On the other side, Mason Caton Brown with his flying try and 104 metres to complement that.
Tinirau. Go on. That's all I think of now when I see Tinirau Arona. Sorry, mate, I don't mean to ruin your flow.
Are we going to call him Bright Eyes then?
Go back. Yeah, that'll do, yeah. Bright eyes around.
Losers from the losing side there. Mark Percival, 2 tries and 170 metres, so certainly a strong performance from him. James Rebby, 40 tackles and 170 metres. Adam Swift, 132 metres. Alex Walmsley, 131. Morgan Knowles, 41 tackles. He worked really hard.
Wonderful. Okay, well, commiserations to St Helens and congratulations to Wakefield at the same time in front of 15,699 people, the 700th of whom was Robert Hicks. The referee, Mark Wigan, were beating Leeds Centurions in the Battle of the Borough by 20 points to 0. Centre Anthony Gelling scored 2 tries to guide the champions to their derby victory against a Centurion side that failed to register a point in only their 3rd ever Super League meeting with the Warriors. Tough conditions made expansive play difficult, and Gelling's first score on the back of a George Williams kick was the only try of the first half. He was just a plastic Luke Gale. Joe Burgess limped off with an ankle injury, but Wigan overcame his loss. Williams crossed himself before Gelling's second ended the hopes of the Centurions.
We only have one fan review from this, and it's not a Wigan or a Leaf fan, so 15,500+ people on, but none of them got in touch.
Maybe 4G was down.
But Tyler gets in touch, Tyler Cass fan, and probably says what everyone would have said anyway, which is the sticky conditions made this game difficult for most, but not George Williams, who